MLB Network debuted premiered the Greg Maddux documentary, One of a Kind, last night. Hear my thoughts and reactions, plus plenty more on this episode of the Scho-Zone. All right, everybody, welcome to the Scho-Zone. It's your host, Ryan Schofield. Nobody in here now, but I'm planning on some people watching that later. Thank you for tuning in. If you give me a like, subscribe, comment, and share to a friend, I'd greatly appreciate that. Anyways, slowly but surely, working my way into building this into being an actual show. That was kind of phase one, building an intro, which not really anything impressive I just did there, but I would like to give a big thank you to the Isotopes for letting me use their song, 50 Centitude, I believe is the name of it. I should probably give them a credit here somewhere in the ticker here. But I reached out to them personally. They told me I could use it. I had to pay for the song. I hope that this doesn't cause any copyright things. I'll have to send the actual text between me and the person who manages the Isotopes Facebook page to get it on there. But anyways, a nice little progress start on there. Slowly but surely, I'm realizing that I need to start investing some actual money into making this look like an actual show. But for right now, I guess you're just kind of tuning into the making of a podcast, and eventually you'll get into the actual podcast if that's how it's going to work. Most of the money that I should be using to probably build this thing up or start paying for some of the things that'll make this look nicer and actually get it to where more people see it, I use those to spend to go to the baseball games I'm going to. Again, not made of money. Kind of just a guy that grinds along as a sales guy and a gambler, which I'll probably touch on a little bit of some thoughts of how I'm going to make some money in the future because we do have NFL season coming up. But I planned on, or at least as I told you, this was going to be about the Greg Maddux documentary. I should at least start off with that before I do my usual course of talking about whatever the fucking hell else comes up to my mind. Wow, let me slow that one up. I should probably breathe before I talk. Last night, like I said, the MLB Network debuted, which I didn't know that this was actually happening. I like how the marketing has gotten very creative for how we tease things now. In the Greg Maddux documentary, I just started seeing all these little clips popping up of people that were discussing Greg Maddux's career or just little aspects of it. Like you started seeing the clip from Eddie Perez talking about how Maddux called his own pitches, or you started seeing the back and forth with Barry Bonds over certain at-bats. And I had no idea where they had come from because, let's face it, there's so much content on the internet, myself included, that with 24 hours in the day, and if you actually have a job that you go to for 8 to 9 hours a day like I do, it's very easy to miss out on some things. So I just randomly found out that, oh shit, there is a Greg Maddux documentary. Now, that one meant a little bit more to me, I think, than some others might be. A little background story on that one is that my mother is probably one of the biggest Greg Maddux fans out there. I mean, I don't know any which way of gauging this. I just know that my mother used to watch every single Atlanta Braves game because growing up, the Turner or TBS was at least in upstate New York. I don't know if it was a national network, but they had the Braves on there. And she, for whatever reason, because if you were attracted to a baseball player, I don't understand what's so, Greg Maddux is just, maybe that's what made him attractive to my mother, because that's where it started off. She was attracted to him, that he was just kind of this everyman. I mean, because that's the thing. When you look at Greg Maddux, part of the mystique of him is that he looked like he should be filing your taxes, not dominating major league hitters. But that's, just the context of what professional baseball players look like. If Greg Maddux was to walk into, what's one takeaway I had from this one? They talked about how he could dunk at 6 foot tall. And I just kind of think that's, if he walks into the local YMCA to play a run at basketball, he's probably going to be the best player there. But when you put him next to a bunch of other MLB baseball players, it's like, what the hell, how'd this guy get here? And that's what just made so impressive about him. And also just his different approach to how he pitched, I guess, was really just, we haven't seen really anything like it since. And we didn't really see much like it before because, again, right now, there'd never be another Greg Maddux in the sense of that, even he admits that he had to kind of ramp up his velocity to get noticed, but he never would have survived on velocity in the majors. He had to survive on the pitching acumen that he had. And the idea also, too, 355 wins. We won't even see 255 again, I would probably imagine. That was, I think that they didn't really bring this one up when they were talking about the workload that he had for the period of time that he did. But I believe when Maddux started out with the Braves, that was just a 4-man rotation. I think that it was because they loosely kind of mentioned it when he joined the Braves, how half of the rotation was already all-stars. So I believe that it was him, Glavine, Smoltz, and Steve Avery was the 4th there. My mom actually has a ball autographed by the 3 Hall of Famers on there. The 4th guy on that ball was Denny Nagel. And I believe even at one point, just to give you an idea, because Denny Nagel had a pretty good run going for a little bit there. I believe even one guy who had another start with there, and maybe he actually started off as their 5th pitcher. There was always that 4th spot there. And I'm not sure if they went to 5. I'm misremembering this one a little bit, but I know that Jason Schmidt, who went on to have a good career, also became the rookie that came up through there. And what was the other guy's name? Jason Schmidt, Denny Nagel, and oh shit, there was another good one that was a 4th starter there somewhere. Kevin Millwood. That was another one that kind of came there. And that was just the nice little flashback again of that, for somebody who is, I'm curious if, anyone does want to reach out on this one. Again, there's the email address. You can drop a comment on here. But if you are like 25 years old, I'm kind of curious what your reaction to watching that one was, because, again, things were just different, the way the players were. And I don't think that chess match that pitchers like Maddux had is quite, right now in baseball, guys don't even go through the rotation a 3rd time, or it's very, very rare. Only select pitchers get the opportunity to go through the lineup 3 times. And with the way that Maddux was pitching, going the distance that he would go into games, he was sometimes going a 4th time through the order. If you're pitching a complete game, you probably face the top of the order a 3rd or 4th time. And I've got on in the background right now, I've got, pennant race baseball, or not pennant race, but division race baseball, I guess I would say. I have the Royals and the Guardians. I actually got that one correct the first time on the television right now. It's a little bit of a double header. These are big, big games, especially for someone like me, because I need the Guardians out of the driver's seat of the division. It looks like the Royals just hit a go-ahead home run. It's probably going to be under review, but I thought it was a home run when it happened. So they're going to go up 3-2 in this one. I have some action on the Royals to win the division from the beginning of the season at 22-1 odds that I have sold a piece off of, and I have the Twins as a piece that I kind of sold off to put on the Twins to get there. Really didn't trust the Guardians to hold the pace that they were doing all year. So far, I've been right about that part of it, but it doesn't mean shit if the other teams don't catch them. So that was the first side rant. We'll go back to the Maddux stuff. Like the idea that, and when even his catcher, because Eddie Perez was who they interviewed there. Now, the Braves during that time period had Charlie O'Brien was actually the regular catcher to start off with, I believe, or I forget if he maybe was Max's first original catcher. But when they got Javi Lopez was an all-star catcher as a hitter, but he was not there to catch Maddux. And probably because it took a very special catcher to catch Maddux. And we find out why in that documentary with the very intricate way that Maddux called pitches. And I found it amazing that, we talk about, I just can get off the bar here, but how Maddux, one of the big moments of how he changed up and probably made him call the pitches the way that he did was how in his playoff debut, Will Clark hit a grand slam off of him. And the idea that Will Clark, whether it was true or not, said, I read his lips when he was talking on the mound. The idea that in the 80s, nobody was covering their mouths with their glove. Now everybody does it. And they gave credit to Maddux kind of being the one starting that. But to even go deeper of that, we have, and it looks like that home run was disallowed now. So it's just 2-1. But to go even deeper with that, how we don't allow, or how sign stealing kind of became a little bit of a polarizing topic there with the Astros, how relaying a team's pitching, the upcoming pitches to somebody and what lengths we go into that. But the fact that Maddux had that ability, it's impossible for the guy at second base to know what pitch is being called if he doesn't. That's a very, very intricate code. I've been watching The Wire on a rewatch recently. This is like season 5 with Marlo Stanfield and the clock kind of shit to be able to figure that one out, I would say. So gonna have to, that was something that was new and learned to me. And now it looks like that is a home run and the Royals are going to be up 3-2. Is that? Yep. Looks okay. We got the ding around there. That was, quite fascinating. The fact that nobody picked up on this, like even the Astros cheating scandal, eventually somebody was paying enough attention to going, I think when I hear that, let me mix up the signs here. So the fact that nobody was picked up on that one, I found to be fascinating. But again, I don't think anybody, the one thing I kind of took away from this one, and this has been something I've been warming up on over the years. I have really, people can change. It's kind of the Rocky speech. If I can change and you can change, anyone can change. I look at that as with my attitude towards Barry Bonds. Again, Barry Bonds, it's really sad. I mean, again, I'm going to San Francisco and Oakland coming up, and it's already sad enough that I talk about what's happened with Oakland. It's really sad with Barry Bonds, and I know that I'm somebody that's not very apologetic to Pete Rose, but it's sad when I read that Barry Bonds has given up on the dream of ever being in the Hall of Fame, where Pete Rose, I think, delusionally still thinks he should be in there, or he'll use people like Barry Bonds as to why his reason he should be in there, or basically anybody else who did anything wrong in their life, he says why it's there. Bonds has accepted his fate, which is sad because, as I said, when Willie Mays died, they said that, who was the greatest living player of all time. I wasn't sure that it wasn't Barry Bonds after Hank Aaron died that was the greatest baseball player of all time. Again, with the steroid thing, it becomes a murky conversation, but seeing Bonds and the way that he broke down the game, and just knowing that for Maddux to say after he gave up his 9th home run to him that I'm never going to give up another home run to him, and to know how careful he was, and seeing them just hand these guys tablets and they don't remember these at-bats anymore, and them to kind of game plan through their thought process and just kind of how they would go about that. I just found it to be fascinating content because it just gives you an idea as somebody who, I love baseball, and I know about 10% of what those guys do. That might even be a lofty estimate. The game within the game that we're not even aware of. What that documentary, the only thing that documentary was really missing to me, which I think was beyond the control of anybody. I mean, it's obviously was beyond the control of the people that were making it, but it would have been, and I say that there's just for a litany of reasons why it would be great if he was still alive. But if Tony Gwynn was still alive, there would have been such more. There probably would have been an extra half an hour in that one, or there probably would have been, maybe Bonds isn't in there and it's Gwynn that's in there. They're going on that back and forth with, because Maddux quotes, one of them was about how if you mix speed, you miss locations, the human brain just can't compute it unless you're that asshole Tony Gwynn. I'm paraphrasing that quote there. So I'm sure that he really, really would have loved the back and forth on that. And I would always love to hear Tony Gwynn talking about hitting, because, when he was talking about hitting, I don't think anyone really, I don't want to say anyone cared, but it was new kind of content. Now on social media, I mean, I probably watch half an hour a day of videos of people breaking down the science of hitting. And most of these guys are nobodies. And I'm a 39-year-old guy who's just got a couple good years left of slow pitch softball. So I don't really know why I watch, but it's out there. The algorithm's got me targeted, and hopefully the algorithm finds you at some point. So yeah, that was quite a gem. And it just made me think of the other documentaries that I feel like that a lot of this, that everyone's the trendsetter on this one, and Michael Jordan, or not everyone's a trendsetter, everyone's kind of following along. And The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, it just could not have been any more perfect based on who it was, the era it was, kind of the new way of covering stuff from there, but also the fact that was the biggest thing that happened release-wise during COVID. And I think that it's opened the door now for more people to want to have their story told through some of these forums. And I just think that there's a bunch of tremendous players to have these on. Like I would, for example, there's a couple guys. One was actually in there. I mean, Bonds deserves his own thing. And I would like it to be told kind of like how the last Pete Rose was where it's fair share of positive and negative, not just a one-sided slanted thing where it's not a smear piece and it's not a glorification. It's just tell the story of who this guy was and the impact his career had on the sport that he played. And I think that Barry Bonds made a compelling story for that. Again, as I head to Oakland, and I have a Ricky Henderson shirt on the way in the mail that I'm going to be wearing to Oakland in the Kelly Green, I believe it's going to be. I think that Ricky Henderson would make for fascinating content. And I think if you presented it as the way is that he paved the way for the diva athlete, I guess you would say, or the outspoken, or just the self-centered, I guess I must say. And I don't want to sound negative about Ricky because I love Ricky, but I don't know if these NFL wide receivers, because NFL wide receivers weren't like that so much when Ricky was playing baseball. And then throughout Ricky's career, they started becoming that way. So I would think that he would make compelling. I do think that there would be one to get the story behind, and maybe he's just not liked enough, but I would really love to see the Albert Bell story of some form, or not something that was made by someone more than just a YouTuber like myself, something where we actually get him to explain himself. I mean, again, the idea that a guy got hit by a pitch one time and refused to take first base and just, I mean, he looked like an angry man, and it looked like he took it out on baseballs. And for a couple years there, and again, I'm sure that I hate to speculate with no proof, but just it's almost easier to just assume, and I hate that this is the way that it's positioned, but if you were a power hitter in the 90s, I hate that it's almost guilty until proven innocent as far as whether or not you took steroids. But I guess it's just based on how much the media liked you, because we'll always assume that Griffey didn't, which I guess that was the one thing of that when you do have content like this come out, I really need to just get off of all social media as it is. I still have a Twitter account that I see on there. I don't have the app on my phone again, but I still will give it a little glance every now and again just to look through, because you might get like 20 good minutes, just like when you pop into the Scho-Zone, whoever just did. You might see some things that are worth watching, but then something's just going to piss you off and you're going to leave. That's kind of how my attitude's gotten towards Twitter. It's getting that way with Facebook too, and football season I think is only going to make it worse. I'd rather just be in control of, or people that want to react to the stuff I have to say, they actually had to put some effort forth to it, not that it was presented to them. You actually have to click on something on here in order to watch me and hate me. So the fact that you did that, you can say whatever you want to me, but I'm just kind of starting getting over the whole space and how we share information. I just kind of think that if we're not in person with anybody, maybe we shouldn't say things as much, but at least I'm putting a voice and a face out to there, and you're always welcome to have a voice and a face back actually too. If you want to talk some shit with me as a guest on here, fuck it. Nobody else is on. Let's do it sometime. I can always send a link over to you, invite you. But that was, the little sidebar on that one. Just some other athletes. I mean, Tim Lincecum, I think, some guys that came and went would make for some interesting content, because MLB Network, you got a lot of time to fill in the offseason. There's only so much hot stove talk, and let's actually start reporting actual news, or let's actually cut things that actually happened, not versus the speculation on speculation, what it seems that most of that space has become. I just kind of, I made it 20 minutes on here. I've had a couple people that have hung out for a little bit longer. Again, I do know that I need to start getting an actual set time schedule on there. Up until I complete this last ballpark visit, which again, I'll probably post some little teasers and shorts onto there if you want to follow me along on my trip to Oakland and San Francisco to see my final two ballparks that I know of on the stadium. Again, if I hit some massive wagers of some form, who knows? Anything can happen when you got money. Right now, trying to get, grind it all back up there. The Guardians losing, I think, helps me a little bit more. I mean, the Guardians losing definitely does help me. So right now I'm enjoying that watch that I have going right now, and would like to start, making this like an actual show. I do, as crazy as this sounds to anybody, I do make money betting football. I will be joining, and I can prove this with, last year I played in one of those pick'em big giant pools. I do them on DraftKings. I'm not crazy enough to put big money. You get to a certain size of a pool where diminishing returns sets in, where you have to be luckier than good. That's kind of what happens with even some of these pick'em pools. But I do one on DraftKings that cost $50, and I finished in the money last year. I, paid 50. I think I got 200 or something back like that, But the proof is that over picking 5 games a week, I went like 55 or 56%, which is amazing. And if you think that that's shitty, then you probably don't know anything about betting. And if you think that that's amazing and I'm lying, well, I'll prove it to you, but you probably do know a lot about betting. For context, the best I ever finished in a season, and I was actually picking every game in this particular pool, I once finished 58%, which that means that it's really, really tough to say you're good at something when you are wrong 42% of the time, but that was the case. I want to say that was whatever year. I know the Chargers finished the year on like a 10-game winning streak. I think they snagged the 1 seed and then lost to the Jets in the playoffs. I believe it was that season where I had one of my best just pick them against the spreads. Some good little game things here and there. And that's actually something I want to talk about. I'm not going to do an NFL preview of any form. I'm going to kind of formulate some of my thoughts and theories going into the season. Every blind squirrel finds a nut. I will just tell you that year over year, the preseason predictions, I just don't get anything out of them for the most part, unless I'm really going to be out ahead on something. And I think that's where you have to be willing to stick your neck out on something, where don't be afraid to zag when everyone else is zigging, or zigging when everyone else is going to zag, because if you're out ahead of the market, that's just the best way to be. Kind of like how once upon a time I was with the stock Kava, which I was buying in on when it was like 50 some odd dollars a share. Then, like an idiot, I got out on it because I wanted to get that money down on the Brewers to win the division, because at the All-Star break, the Brewers minus 300 to win the NL Central, I thought was like the greatest investment possibility out there. The fact that you guaranteed me that kind of a return in like 3 months' time, just you can't find something like that out there. So I took the money that I had in Kava, which was about like $90 or a little less a share, took all of that out of there to bet that out of there. And the idea being was that as long as Kava didn't get to 120 a share, then I'd be coming out ahead on this and I would just buy all back into Kava. Well, Kava, for some strange reason, it just decided to go absolutely bonkers. As the last I looked, it was like 127 a share, where I have nowhere near as much in there. I sold like 95% of what I had on that one. So the 5% I have remaining is just more or less a reminder. You know, Norm Macdonald had a great quote on gambling one time when he talked about going broke. And he said something about when you lose $400,000, the last thing you want to have is the $20,000 in your account to remind you that you had $400,000. It's almost easier to have zero. I haven't quite adapted that mentality, but it is just a real pain and kick in the dick, I will call it, for lack of a better term, kicking the balls, that whenever I open up my Robinhood app, I just see, even if I'm making money, I just do the math on how much more money it should be. But Kava, I don't think it's going anywhere. CAVA, buy in on that stock. You can look at the past performances, know that I should have been in there. But I think a while back on this show, I was pumping it up there and touting it. So, you know, I'm not always wrong. I'm not always right. Just be right more than you are wrong. Again, it would be nice if the Twins aren't here. One position I took a while back that I thought, and this is just going to be a little bit of a gambling highlight thing. One position that I did take a while back was the Inter Miami to win the MLS. I got that when they had, I think when Messi got hurt, or I don't know what it was, but I got it when it was at like not plus 370, like plus 270. And now it's down to plus 170. I think the MLS is only a 2-team league. So I can really at some point probably buy off of that position. It's, kind of print that a little bit there. I did, as much as it pains me, but money is money. I have a nice investment on the Yankees right now, because I was looking, they fell a half game behind the Orioles. And right now I'm really big at looking at your upcoming schedule, because there is only so much time left in this season. So the shorter the runway is what I learned from Gil Alexander of Beating the Book, who I need to try to have on this at some point, but I would like to have a better outlet for Gil before I have him on here. But I have exchanged emails with him, and once upon a time, about a decade ago, he wanted to be on an audio podcast. So maybe I get him on here. But looking at the schedules, when the Yankees went a half game behind, I looked at their upcoming next couple series and the Orioles' upcoming next couple series. So when I was able to get the Yankees half game back at minus 110, that was just an auto fire, because as it was, they were facing the Rockies coming up and the Orioles were facing the Astros. So I just look at, okay, let's say that even if they are equal teams, I don't know if I buy into the Orioles. I just can't trust the Orioles. The Orioles have a tremendous team, and they can certainly catch lightning in a bottle and rip through the entire postseason at any point in time. I think just because as a gambler who follows the Orioles, and every day when I'm looking to put down some action on a player prop, there's always like 4 Orioles that have amazing matchup numbers. And my ability to always pick the wrong one is absolutely brutal. Between Gunnar Henderson and Anthony Santander have made me a decent chunk of money this year through hitting some prop bets. I would be very curious if I was to depress myself and go through the entire ledger of bets this summer to see if I've come out ahead on them, because they have been the only leg that has lost some small bets that would have paid out pretty big with my little lotto ticket parlays I do every now and again. I don't share those to you because I'm not going to ever advise anybody to make bad bets. They are bad bets. They are just fun. And I need to start following my own advice about how winning is way more fun than having fun. So we'll be doing that a little more come football season, because you're going to have the people. I mean, I am a bit of a volume player, but again, certain things I'm just playing percentages, and I don't want anyone to cherry pick. Like, nothing used to be worse than if somebody would ask me if I had a lock in football, and I would say, well, I've got like 5 picks that I like, and I'm pretty comfortable that 3 of them are going to win. And someone would say, well, if you had to just choose one, I'm like, if I had to choose one, I would. That's just, the whole thing. Or like, the idea that sometimes someone will say like, oh, a safe bet. Let me know what a safe bet is, and trust me, I'll put enough money on it to make it not safe. And I think that sometimes that's the way that the football season should go, is that we'll put together, we'll it's like people are comfortable with losing a few $100s in a week of football, but they don't want to do it on one bet. They'll just want to do it on like, okay, I'll throw a $50 parlay in here and I'll do all these. And they find the ways to put as much down to get as much without actually. And then sure enough, they ended up just losing all those things. And they might have one thing that they leaned on really big and it went nowhere for them. So, always going to suggest, and I really got to heed my own advice, just ignore the boosts and all the parlay stuff. I mean, again, they are a ton of fun, but it's just, you're going to make more money if you just bet things individually. It's nothing glorious. No one enjoys doing it. I mean, I've been betting the Dodgers every game in the month of August, as I posted out to you right there. I think that their record is 15-7 this month. I think I'm up like 3 units maybe on that, or maybe 4 or 5, something where, betting $50 every day on them, it's not real, sexy when they are a minus not 195 favorite and I make 26 on it or something. But you add that up and hey, cool. I just have a, couple bucks to play around with that I didn't before, which really, I would say that I'm like as a gambler, I'm kind of like the guy who sells drugs to be able to support a habit. I'm the guy who can find good bets that still can't stay out of his way as being a degenerate and still making dumb degenerate bets. But again, really got to get better with that. And it does help when I go. I'm sure I'll be good with this when I go to California because I only have my bookie. I go to California and everything's going to be, all crime is legal in California, especially in the Bay Area, from what I understand. And yet I will not be able to fire a wager with FanDuel or DraftKings or anything like that. That was one thing I mentioned. I'll kind of close with, or, who knows if I'll close. I can talk to a wall forever, and eventually that hopefully will pay some dividends. I ordered the Ricky Henderson shirt to wear. As a St. Louis Cardinals fan going to California, I am proceeding with a little bit more caution on this trip, and I'm believing what I see on the internet, but better be safe than sound when going to an area that does have it does have a reputation, we'll say, for lawlessness to a certain extent. And I mostly own a lot of St. Louis Cardinals stuff, which really does suck because I'm probably going to stay this size for a while. Really don't spend enough time out to really care to buy new clothes all the time. I mean, I wear stuff like this, which I like that the Cardinals logo is concealed, but obviously when I have one behind my back, I'm sure you can put the 2 and 2 together as to what it is. But I'm going to an area, a part of the country where I'm not sure if when and where you're wearing blue and red is a good idea. And most Cardinal stuff I have is in blue and red colors. So while I will always wear my Cardinals hat, and I always wear white Cardinals hats because I just think it's easier to match with stuff. That's, about the most thought I put into my, wardrobe on a given day, or when I buy things, I would say. For the most part, I'm just kind of buying the same things I usually do. But I would, I don't want to have the thing where I'm in Oakland, because I've watched a couple videos of the East Oakland area where, yeah, it seems like if you're from the neighborhood or, you're from the area, they seem like they're pretty kind of their own, but when they don't recognize you, they might want to know what you're doing there. And I feel like that, maybe wearing bright red just is not always the best look. So, and just because part of the reason I'm going there is to kind of pay homage to Ricky Henderson. So I bought the Ricky Henderson shirt. It's just a picture of him in the stealing position, which again, that's why I would love to see the Ricky Henderson documentary, because hearing Maddux break down how he would pitch to certain hitters and all of that stuff, I am sure that Ricky could provide equal, if not better, content on the art of the stolen base, because at the end of the day, Ricky Henderson was one of one. And maybe if he starts imparting some of that wisdom on there, like I am sure that Ellie De La Cruz is way faster than Ricky Henderson ever was, but he will never steal as many bases as Ricky Henderson did. And if Ricky Henderson played under the current rules right now, I'm not dismissing the idea of like maybe 200 stolen bases. And just kind of paying some more tribute to some Ricky Hendersonisms. Again, second most walked hitter of all time. I just saw the list where it's him, Barry Bonds, and then I think it was either Ruth, Aaron, or and Ted Williams. The other guys you don't mind walking because they can do much more damage to you if you don't walk them. Ricky Henderson, it was the last guy you wanted to walk because Ricky can turn a walk into a triple. And for some reason, I'm pretty sure that Ricky said that, not me. Everybody, I'm really just kind of was winging this, putting this out there. Again, this is the making of a podcast. I'm trying to figure out what works, what doesn't. The live streams, when I'm on the road, I don't know if it's a certain time or something, I do get more of a following. I picked up some subscribers, but then nobody's watching again, so got to figure that one out. I don't know if doing the pre-recorded videos is going to be one, but I do plan on doing one. I think I'm going to pre-record because I've been tinkering around with how to use all this stuff and testing it out. And I now have the ability, or I learned how to do the video and video thing. I'm not trying to ever turn this show into too political. At some points in times, I will probably touch on that because we're at a really, really important time in our nation, and which I think it's cliche to say how this election goes will decide how, life goes from this point on. That's probably been said for every election. I'm just a prisoner in the moment on this one. But I do going down the Carlin rabbit hole because the DNC did really kind of inspire me a little bit to go down that rabbit hole. And it's just, there's a reason why I own the Carlin was right shirt. You're watching stuff 25, 30 years ago, and he fucking nailed it all. And I think that I would like to make it easier for some people to actually understand those or know where to find those. So I'm going to do maybe a picture-in-picture type thing where I'll go through some Carlin clips and point out some highlights and thoughts and reactions of things I have and who knows? I'm not sure if I'm even allowed to do that. At some points, I'm going to learn from my mistakes. And if I touch the hot stove, aka the copyright stove, and I get burned, well, I just won't do it again. So everybody, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you checking this out. Like, subscribe, comment, anything. There wasn't very many of yous in here, and a couple of yous didn't really hang out so long. But anyone that watches this on the replay, give me a comment. Let me know how you think. And let me know what you think of the intro. Again, big thank you to the Isotopes. Check out their stuff on YouTube.